All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about AVID at WHS. So some of you may not know much. We have students here today to kind of share in the joy of AVID. So that should be a nice part of the presentation. Thank you, girls, for coming. We're going to start by talking about AVID, the program of AVID that is a global, right, phenomenon, and why it's so great. And then we'll talk about specifically at Wheeling, how it rolls out. Talk a little bit about our favorite acronym, which is WICR, and then disciplinary literacy is kind of the last little bit. We went to the conference in Orlando and heard a little bit about this term, and so I want to kind of talk about it a little bit with you guys too. So
I'll just mention the handouts don't really necessarily go along with the slides or presentations. Kind of just extra things like some data and stats nationally, and then for Illinois is one of them, and then the last page is kind of like what we were talking about in the last thing, disciplinary literacy, a little handout for that. So I just wanted to mention that.
okay, so we're going to have you guys do a quick write. So a quick write in AVID is when you write for a set amount of time. We're going to give you 2 minutes. And you write without thinking or judgment or stopping. So you have to just write continuously, kind of whatever's flowing out of your brain. So you can write on the back of one of the handouts. You can just text yourself if you don't have something to write with. But the question up here is, what do you know about AVID? And somewhere within your writing, you have to use the words tutorials, literacy, collaboration, and future. So that's a fun little game on the side.
You guys want
Okay.
to do it too?
So do not stop, and if your mind starts
Stop
thinking
short.
about something else, you can just write that down too. So on your marks, get set, write. You guys are good little students. We're coming on the halfway point. All right, 10 seconds to go. So you want to finish up your final sentence, final thought. 3, 2. Alarming. All right. So does anyone want to share, especially if you don't know anything about AVID, that would be a really good one to share as well, because maybe you wonder what these words have to do with AVID, or anyone that knows a lot about AVID. Yeah. For teachers up in here.
I wrote Bruce is the AVID man. I think tutorials are on Tuesdays, Thursdays. Kids ask questions and try to come up with a solution. I don't know about the literacy piece. Collaboration might have to do with the tutorials. One of the goals is for the students to think about their future, I think, in terms of feeling more prepared to make going to college is one of the goals.
Yes, yes, it is.
Lots of
All right,
ideas.
A+. Good job. Anybody else? No pressure. Don't have to.
I am familiar with AVID and its excellent program, having had many of my students who are doing they've gone through the program. I've also taken some tutorials with Bruce, and my nieces and nephews also went through the AVID program. I diversity and encourages students' collaboration, helping motivate and encourage each other for success in the future.
Awesome, another A plus. Good writing, guys. So just a little bit to get your juices flowing. Check your pre-knowledge. Okay. Oh, no, okay. So, real quick, the big picture about what is AVID. This is from like the AVID, program itself and the people that write the AVID curriculum and design the policies and mission statements as we see in the yellow here. So AVID's mission is to close the opportunity gap by preparing all students for college and career readiness in a global society. And new this year is that phrase about career readiness. So it's not just about college necessarily, but talking about the literacy and
Added
skills.
that word this year.
Yeah. That they need, because maybe some careers, right, obviously aren't going to go down the college pathway. So that's kind of nice. And then AVID in general develops students as readers, writers, and collaborators, teaches specific strategies for critical thinking and inquiry, we'll talk more about later. Providing support, right, especially for first generation students. And then here at Wheeling specifically, we of course also have those same high expectations. Would you agree? Yes. Right. Provide students with tutorial opportunities. We do them once a week now since we switched to the AV schedule. And then we take students, of course, on college visits, so you have students missing often for college visits because, if you're not aware, we have 4 sections of AVID per grade level. So sometimes we have to split up like sophomore or freshman field trips right into 2 days to get that many kids on campus. So we know that is sometimes annoying, but well worth the time for them to be on
Our
campus.
goal is to get them to see 3 campuses a year. And then junior year, they get to take a big overnight trip during spring break.
And then of course it's supposed to be an all 4-year program, but we accept students occasionally, right? After freshman year, sometimes in the middle of freshman year, sometimes in sophomore year, and even this year, I don't know how she got in, but we squeaked in a couple new juniors too, and we've never done that before. Well, I don't know that we've never done that, but some rare cases like that as well. So, and then we help them all the way through college application process senior year. Okay.
So I'll just kind of introduce this video. This is AVID Center. They do a lot of videos to promote AVID. So this is a short one. I think it's only 2 minutes. It's just a nice little video about what AVID kind of is and the impact it has on some kids. So,
Yeah, from the student perspective too, which is our favorite thing.
That sounds slow.
It's a build-up, Bruce. It's
Yes,
good.
it
Good
is.
build-up.
It does build up.
I come to the world from a background of struggle. Hold your tissues and your tears. This isn't a sob story. This is my success story. This is AVID. My circumstances don't define me in society. AVID gave me the choice to choose my destiny. I am going to be a college graduate.
Right now, right here, in this moment, I'm creating my future.
The limitless capability of AVID continues to empower me to break barriers.
AVID made possible the reimagining of my life, from one limited by circumstance to one liberated by opportunity, from one closed by boundaries to one opened by hope.
You know what they say, iron ore cannot be educated into becoming gold. However, if the ore receives the right type of education, then the ore can use that education as the most powerful tool to change the world.
AVID creates an environment where students learn to hope, to dream, to support, to take charge of their journey. They matter. They are limitless.
You are the leaders. You have control of the pen. So write your story and don't let anyone write it for you.
I have been pushed to excel despite my circumstances, and I would not let anyone or anything other than me define who I am. I am limitless. We are limitless. AVID is limitless.
So I think that was our slogan for this year, or past last year, maybe, be limitless. So just, I think, a nice video to show the impact. So back to what it looks like here at Wheeling, our schedule here in this room and the room next door, we have 2 AVID classrooms, if you weren't aware. We kind of follow this similar schedule, where on the days where we meet Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, those weeks we do curriculum stuff twice a week and tutorials once a week. So curriculum, some of you may be wondering, like, what's the curriculum in AVID? You know, we do, our focuses, we'll talk about in a second here, is WHICR, which is writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. So we like to do a lot of writing, especially in reading activities the most. Any type of team building or collaborative activities. On this day, the Tuesdays, is where we do also some collaborative activities. A lot of times with our counselors or social workers, psychologists, they'll do what we call SCL days in AVID, it's like once a month or so. So the tutorials happen once a week, either a Thursday or a Friday. And then Tuesdays is our organization day. So you may see that I know a lot of teachers have seen the kids with their binders, the AVID binders, and we do kind of partly regular binders now and part digital binders. So some of the kids keep some of their organization on an electronic binder, Google Sites we use. So they get checked and they get graded that they're doing that in here. They have to use their planner. We grade the use of their planner. So that's why their organization skills really do improve a lot as they go through that.
I'm sorry, is it a digital planner then that they use?
Well, they have the option, I would say though, but most of the kids use the paper planners. They like those a lot better for some reason. But yeah, they could if they want to use digital.
And just because we grade them on it, we want to, PSA, that doesn't mean that they use it all the time. So we are working hard to get them to use their planner, on a daily basis. But the reminders are always help too in class.
So yeah, this is kind of what it looks like in our classes. Our students will talk a little bit more perhaps about that. Next slide we have, I think it's another video slide. Yeah. So this, we focus a lot, part of our curriculum is on teaching note-taking skills too. So especially beginning freshman year, we're really pushing them how to take good notes. Part of that organization grade is that they're taking good focused notes. We're also using what we call these learning logs, where they're supposed to kind of write down what they do in their classes. So this is a nice video which kind of explains, we should always show this at the beginning of the year to the kids and a couple times throughout, why taking notes are so important. It's a short video, so we're gonna hit play.
Did you know that the brain is designed to forget things, which makes learning new information really hard? The focused note-taking process makes learning stick. A landmark study done in the 1880s found that people forget along a predictable curve. In an hour, you will forget more than half of what you've learned. A day later, you will only remember a third. And it just keeps getting worse from there. The focused note-taking process is designed to help you remember what you learned. The secret is repetition. Interacting with your notes within 18 minutes will boost your recall from 55% to 100%. Revisiting your notes within 1 day increases your learning from 70% back to 100%. Notice the curve of forgetting changes dramatically after every interaction with your notes. Complete 5 repetitions, and the information is all but cemented in your brain.
So what I would say that perhaps some of you can potentially do in your classes is having them go through, instead of just taking notes, and a lot of times kids just take notes and never look at them again, but having them interact with the notes. And what that means for us is we tell them, you should compare notes with a friend or with a partner. Like if you could give them that class time, that's great. Compare your notes. After that is annotate your notes. And if you guys can give them class time to do that, that's great too. Like circle keywords and highlight and underline and do all that kind of stuff. Write questions along the margins. That's what we encourage them to do. If you don't understand something that's in your notes, write a little question. And then one of the biggest ones is write a summary at the end of your notes. Like they have this 1 or 2 pages full of notes. What does it actually mean? In like 3 or 4 sentences, so they can write a summary. That kind of forces them to go back and reread their notes and then write about it, and then it's going to stick in their brain a little longer, kind of like the video was suggesting. So we encourage that. We want them to do that a lot. When we check their binders for organization, we're looking for those summaries and annotations in their notes. And we're looking at their notes from all of your classes, not just like AVID notes. Like we're seeing if in chemistry or law or Spanish that they have taken notes too. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, for my EL students, I say that it counts with, like when we're grading them on focus notes, if they are translating words, I see that that's like an addition that they're adding to their notes, so extra, annotations, I like counting the translations as annotations.
Yeah, the more they do anything with their notes is gonna help them remember more of its notes, so that's something we always encourage them to do. Don't just take notes, that's just like phase 1, there's like 5 phases that AVID goes through, just phase 1 is just taking notes, and then there's all those other things. Alright, I think we're gonna I'm gonna introduce a couple of guests I have today asked to come in. So I don't know if any of you know them, but this is Leslie and Christina. They're gonna come up here in a second. These are the slides they make for our AVID seniors whenever they get their college acceptance letters. So as you can see, our 2 students today have already been accepted to many schools already. So they're well on their way to deciding, well, Christina's already decided where she's going. Leslie's still working on deciding where she's gonna go. But I asked them to come in today just to kind of tell a little bit from their perspective about how AVID has been for them and what works and things like that. So you guys ready to come on up here? They got you there. Alright, so, well, you can see who they are. Leslie on the left here, Christina on the right. Again, they're both seniors. They've been through AVID all 4 years. They've done everything they're supposed to do as far as everything. But then applying to colleges, we help them apply to colleges along the way for semester. So, who's going to start? Let's give me some questions to kind of get thinking.
So, what kinds of students are in AVID? Personally, I would say it's mostly first-generation students. If not, it's like kids who had siblings who were in AVID. So, like, my sister graduated and she also went through the AVID process. So I guess that's where I kind of got it from. But it's also kids who, even if they're not first generation, who want to go to college but don't necessarily know how to navigate the difficult process, or like they want to know like all of their options, since it's more than just like a 4-year, then the 2-year, and then there's even trade school at that, and like also the financial aid process and learning how to apply for FAFSA or like the alternative application, and how that's something that you have to do every year, and a lot of students think that you just apply to FAFSA one time and that's it, but they don't know that you have to reapply every year. So it's mostly first gen students, but also those who just want to learn how to get into college and then how to graduate college too.
So the next question is, how has AVID helped you as a student? And personally, it has helped me become more organized. I know in middle school I was very unorganized, and freshman year in AVID I was still unorganized. And even though throughout the pandemic, like I've actually grown as a person and become more organized and like become more social with people, which is a really good part of AVID. Helps you socialize more. And what skills has AVID helped you with? Again, it helps a lot with organization and also with socializing with others. Most of the time, you don't know who is an AVID, and like sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't know that person was an AVID, because like you have 2 different classes. But you get during the field trips, you get to meet new people. So.
Yeah, one of the things that like AVID not really stresses on, but I guess the concept of the AVID family, everybody, like by the end of like the year, you know everybody, and I guess in your class it just feels like a family within itself. So you always have that support, I guess, from other students and your teachers as well. And what kind of things have I learned and enjoyed doing in AVID? From freshman year, I guess we've been focusing on like the long-term plan. So since freshman year, I remember doing we did like a Mandela thing. It was like a little cardboard circle, and we kind of like put things that were important to us, and like we also wrote like an essay starting freshman year on like things that were important to us or wanted to accomplish in the future. And then we also wrote like an essay with our life goals. And I guess freshman year I was kind of thinking farther, so it was just like where you thought you would go to college or what you thought you would major in. And then that kind of kept going on to like sophomore year. I remember, I think the big project that I liked was where you got to pick a certain college and you made like a whole slideshow about it, and you learned the ins and outs of the college. And like sophomore year, I was really set that I was gonna go to Northwestern, so I did my project on Northwestern, and it kind of stuck. I mean, not going to Northwestern, it like helped you learn about different schools and everything. And I guess just learning about the different types of financial aid and like about like learning about loans and the the different forms of financial aid, since that you can get merit aid and then you get like government and like stuff like the different types of ways you can pay for college, and just like learning about different schools through like the college visits and then the guest speakers that we get, I think was probably my favorite stuff in that year.
How are tutorials helpful? Tutorials are very helpful, especially if you're taking like rigorous courses. Your peers are also there to help you. Like, I know I'm taking pre-calc and it's pretty hard, and my peers who like are in AP Calc or something like a higher math, they can help me, or I can help the other students. So with tutorials, you can ask any question. It doesn't always have to be from your math class. It can be like chemistry, from your English class. It varies on however you want to.
So how important is organization for me? I guess with AVID, like learning how to use a planner and just taking notes, it really helped with time management. And I guess as like time in high school passed, I started taking more rigorous courses, so I needed to learn how to manage my time, and not even to get everything done, but like allotting enough time for everything, because if I had an essay due one day, but then I had chemistry homework the next day, I needed to know how much time I had to allot for that certain essay so that I still had time to study for chemistry. So it's just like learning how much time you need for every activity or assignment. So I guess organization is it's really helpful, so that you know to start early enough so that you're not last minute like doing an essay the night before it's due.
How do kids' perspective of AVID change over the past 4 years? It changes for every student, but for me, I was undecided if I really wanted to go to college or not. And being a first gen is pretty hard to like go through the college process, since I don't have anybody like any other sibling who's actually gone to college. So throughout the 4 years, I've actually focused myself more on what I want to do, where I want to go, and AVID has helped a lot. And I feel like AVID helps you set your mind of, do you want to go to college, or do you want to go to trade school, or do you want to go to the military?
And so what kind of things would I recommend that other teachers do in their classes? So this one may be more for like the English teachers, but if you could like incorporate like college essay writing early, like starting like the Common App essay or whatever form like the student chooses to take, because the writing for colleges, like the essay writing, takes up a lot of time, and if you don't start early, you'll be chasing deadlines, and it adds a lot of stress on top of the coursework that you're already taking. And then maybe just encouraging the use of a planner and like note taking. It doesn't necessarily have to be like Cornell notes, but just taking notes in general, I guess, helps the student stay organized. And again, like the planner, I think has been like one of the most helpful things, since you have everything written out or like typed out in front of you, and you can just kind of get even the pleasure of just checking something off the list. So yeah.
Any, we can have a little Q&A time. Anyone want to ask them a couple of questions before we let them sit down again?
Can I just ask for your tutorials, thinking back over your 4-year career, right? Like, what would you say was the percentage of like math, science, English, social studies, right, for the tutorials? Like, would you say like, oh, it's like 90% math?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. There's a high, like everybody mostly picks math, because that's what we mostly struggle with. There's a variety of like, maybe like 20% is also science classes, but it's mostly math.
Yeah, I think if it's not math, it's science, and the most common science is probably chemistry, because it's mostly math. So.
Well, from my perspective, so the tutorial forms that they use, which AVID develops the forms, they really make it nice and easy to do math, because they ask you to write your steps down and things like that. So by default, I think some kids just go to math because it's a little easier to fill out the form. Whereas if it's an English or a social studies question, sometimes it's hard for them to think of steps that they're working on. Because at the end of the tutorial form, it's supposed to be like, which step are you confused on? You know, and math and science tend to be a little easier for that part. So we definitely try to encourage them to pick the class with your lowest grade. That should be the tutorial question.
Yeah, I just, I noticed that with freshmen, I don't like the math, I don't know if the math obviously got harder as you went on, but I noticed I calculated the lowest grades out of all my freshman students, and there were maybe 2 or 3 that were in a higher math, but for the most of them that were in algebra, their 3 lowest grades, none of them were algebra. But I think 95% of my class, besides like 2 or 3 students, did an algebra tutorial. So I kind of put a math band the last 2 tutorials for the kids, because none of them were failing, but they were failing like English or something else. So, but I assume as you got harder, I don't know what the percentage would have been for each year.
Yeah, you would definitely see with juniors and seniors taking those more advanced math classes. It does, they need it. So it does. So, but yeah, freshmen, they're across the board. They're struggling out the classes anyway sometimes.
Would you say, how difficult would you say is that jump from 8th grade, from middle school to high school for you guys? How difficult is that jump?
Well, I guess for me, I went from taking like just the base level classes like in 8th grade, like the regular level classes, and then I was put into the honors English class freshman year and AP Human Geo. So I guess from going from like having just done like I guess the minimum to going into honors and the honors and AP track, it was like kind of like a little bit of a shocker because there's like a lot more that goes into it, and you have to, I guess like especially for like the AP Human Geo class, a lot of studying goes into it outside of school. So it's not just, oh, you got this assignment to do by the end of class. Like it's now you have to do stuff outside of school. So I guess learning that you have to study and like how to manage your time now that you have honors and AP classes, I guess depending on the student, like the jump is, it could be a little bit difficult.
Same question I asked him real quick, is that like, do you find it easier to do your, maybe is it for school, but I don't know, I always kind of put my reminders on my phone. I have like an app, it's called like To Do, or like I have like different calendar things. Do you like doing it digitally or do you like doing it on paper? Okay.
I think, I don't know, because the year we were all remote, they kind of had to do everything all electronically, and then when they came back, they were like, can we do the paper, can we do the paper? They all wanted to do the paper.
I think even online I still use the paper planner and just take pictures of it.
Yeah.
I get the joy of like checking something off like physically.
So good if everyone had that joy. You refer to it as joy.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, you girls can have a seat. Thanks.
Are we gonna toot Christina's horn a little bit?
Oh yeah, maybe not everybody knows. Christina did something pretty
I know
cool.
you hate this.
She gets so embarrassed whenever I say this, because I tell everybody. Yeah, she's one of the people that Dr. Hubbard mentioned this morning got the Questbridge Scholarship. So she is going to the University of Chicago. Full ride.
Whoa!
And it's part Leslie's win too, I think. You're her trusty sidekick. So whatever she can send your way, I think you ask you for that. Good job, Christina. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, Christina, Dr. Hubbard did tell the whole staff this morning. But he didn't say your name, so she's so embarrassed.
Yeah, okay. Oh, Wicker for me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, okay. So Wicker is AVID's favorite acronym after the word AVID, actually. And I guess we never really said what AVID stands for. If you don't know, it stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. So it's all about the individual student and their drive, and you know, from time to time it waxes and wanes, but when they're all in, we really focus on these Wicker skills and strategies throughout the class. So those curriculum days, you know, that you saw on kind of our schedule has to do with, you know, writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. And we kind of have to self-assess our school every year on whether or not we do these things. So I'm pretty sure that we do all of these things in all of our classes anyway, right? From time to time when we get to go into other classes, I think we see all of these things happening. So it's just like the main, source of, how we organize our classes. And
It's just good teaching, which I'm sure a lot of you do, a majority of these things that are already up there. Those are some of the main strategies.
So it's nice to just make it explicit to kids, right, what's going on. So that's very cool. Okay, so last little bit here we're going to transition to is this phrase, disciplinary literacy, which I learned for the first time when we went to the Orlando National Conference just a couple weeks ago. So does anyone know what this means? Or heard of it, or kind of can explain it? I don't know. It was new to me. I went because I thought it was about discipline. I was like, what?
Content specific reading?
Yes, right? And maybe because I'm a math teacher, right? I was like, again, we speak a different language and we have different issues in math. So yes, that's exactly, of course, what it is. So one of your handouts is specifically about it. And then this is a nice definition by AVID in one of their content books about what disciplinary literacy is. So can everyone read from where you are what's up here? Or maybe dim the light, I don't even know that. So I thought we would do a little choral reading because that's so fun to me all the time. And I remember when I learned that at one of these institute days. And I just read about a new one where we kind of like all fade in and have different parts. So you four over here are going to start by reading the first sentence. They're broken up into parts. And then you guys actually are going to read the whole page. Okay? And then we'll have you guys, you four, join in and read the second sentence when we get there. And then the whole room will read the third part all together. Okay? I know. Okay. All right. So let us start. Disciplinary literacy is emphasis on the shared ways of reading, writing, speaking, and thinking within a particular content area or academic field. Disciplinary literacy practices are cultural instructions that are not learned simply by observation. It is AVID's philosophy that educators need to make explicit the discipline-specific literacy practices of their content area in order for students to know how to read, write, speak, and think like mathematicians, historians, scientists, and any other content expert. So this was like my favorite session that I went to, and I was just like floored by this super easy skill that comes next. So they introduced us to just this same mean matter chart, which is so basic, but I liked it because it could be used across disciplines, right? And that's the nice part of the literacy. So all it is that on the first column you can put a quote or maybe a word you're studying. You can put an image, right, or a political cartoon. I know, like in your classes, right? In math, we can do equations and formulas, maybe diagram and other areas of building, CTE and stuff like that. So just very basic and kind of spans everything. So what we're going to do in our little groups is break down those words that we just read, doing the same thing. So we're just going to kind of have you chat with each other. So, not that one. This was the first sentence that we read. So kind of in the same groups that we broke up into to kind of read, maybe the four of you can discuss, right, what this says and decide what it means and why it matters. Okay, and then you guys also, maybe you four will do the same, and then you three, and then I'll come over and join you guys and we'll chat. So let's do it for a couple minutes, 2 minutes sounds good. Good answer.
Thank you.
That was so great. I know, that was the first thing, because I was like,
Yeah, we do.
You know your
Always
speakers
use
are
that.
Love it.
oh, okay. Oh, sure.
And they're leveled and stuff.
Right, and by content areas.
Right, so it's all like, so if we're going over like, the Civil War, we may have an article on the Underground Railroad.
Right.
Specifically, just a reading specific textbook reading, just like an article.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so that kind of, I think what this means, right, is that literacy is different areas and why it matters. Well, because like I remember when we were like doing, this was many years ago, I think we were here about like reading across the curriculum, right? And like in our math class, we were just like, let's do more work. Right. And we didn't ever talk about like, let's look at this chart, let's analyze how they can read this, or they should notice reading a line. More than those kinds of things. I feel like as teachers, that was huge. guys good?
Or assigned for as well.
Right.
Right? Just a shared.
So you're the point person on this one? Oh, yeah.
Okay, that was about 2 minutes, if you've had enough time. Does any group want to kind of share out what this means to them? What did you guys decide? Anything specifically? I know Paul kind of already talked about what this means, but did anybody say anything different about across the content areas for meaning to you in the classroom? What about why it matters? That one you have to answer.
We need more time. We're so.
Oh, I can give you more time.
Extended time.
Extended time. I think it matters in the sense that sometimes, when we think of literacy, we think of English, right? Is responsible for literacy. But being it that reading, really, any of these skills, writing, speaking, we should be doing those in every single content area, not just, it's not content specific. Just for English does the reading, and we're gonna do, I don't know, and the writing, right, always takes place in the English department.
Right.
But it's a shared responsibility, everyone should be doing all these things.
Totally agree. I remember when we did reading across the curriculum, this was probably like 15 years ago, and we kind of did an emphasis on reading in every class, right? Back when we were doing like 1 million minutes of reading and stuff. And as math teachers, when we were asked, right, to come up with ways to emphasize literacy in our classroom, we just literally, the only thing we thought was more word problems. And I was like, that, looking back now and like going to the session, I'm like, that's embarrassing. Like, that's the best we could do, was to think like we just need to read more words. But no, we needed to get content specific, right? So it's good to know that there's, other ways to think of it. So I kind of find a lot of comfort in that. Okay, the next part of the definition they gave us said, disciplinary literacy practices are cultural constructions that are not learned simply by observation. What does that mean? And why does it matter? 2 more minutes.
I think this means you have to practice the skills aren't just going to come naturally, especially because not everyone is like science oriented. You have to practice like the science skills.
Right. Right, and you have to like say them out loud.
Yeah.
Like it's a word on the vocabulary word. Yeah.
I used to, and I enjoyed this construct. I don't know if it's sincerely. I used to have one of my instructional assistants, and I would pull one bit out and be like, okay, you're gonna read the article.
Yeah.
Because I deal with a lot of the LDP kids, and so when they do if any of you are going to the access later, that's part of it, is actually like speak on the test. Yeah. So you have to speak out loud, it's not just reading, but also speak.
And
I think it matters because like some kids are gonna be like math is gonna be more innate to them, so like they don't need to like think about how they figure out math. Like that's just more like hard writing their brain, but like writing a paper can be like the hardest things to them because they're not like a creative person or like a linguistic person.
Sure.
So I think it like helps feels like learning styles too.
Right. Well, and it's too that cultural construction. Like when I think about that, there's definitely a culture of going to school, right? And that's why AVID exists. I think we're trying to teach the culture of school. Yeah. Don't have that like structure, don't innately, like you said, have that skill. Yeah. Kind of what I thought too.
This has been 2 minutes.
I hope so. I might not get up for this one.
You got it. You got it.
Was that enough time? Or you need more time, talkers? Are you guys ready? Or no? Well, we only have 2 minutes till the session's over. That's really Alright, I feel like we had a good answer over here about what it means So do you guys want to share? Or?
Sure. So we think that it means that, like you can't just watch someone do something, you have to practice it, especially because not everyone is like hardwired for math or science. Like they could be really good at that and then struggle with writing and speaking. So giving the opportunities to practice the different skills so that students can all have the, like learn the different disciplinary literacy practices.
Yeah. Agreed. I'd love to hear from everyone. I know we're crunched for time. So what about why does it matter?
We had mentioned that like with the access test, the kids are going to have to practice speaking. So I mean, I know some kids are really good at reading, but they're not really as comfortable speaking. So they kind of have to get that speaking component in there, whether they like it or not. You know, we all tend to try to avoid the things we're not really that good at.
Right. And I think too, even SAT wise, right? The crossover between the questions that are charts that appear, right, in science or in social science and the reading sections now, that's kind of a new thing as well. And I think too, I kind of highlighted that phrase cultural constructions because I think that is what AVID was born from, right? We're trying to teach the culture of college going attitude and expectations and practices and habits. So that kind of hits me hard. I feel like in my heart about like how do we change culture for people? You know, we know even in our organization, right? It's really hard. So always a work in progress. All right, last one, and this kind of goes back, I think, to talking about across the curriculum again. But it's AVID's philosophy that educators need to make explicit the discipline-specific literacy practices of their content area in order for students to know how to read, write, speak, and think like mathematicians, historians, scientists, and any other content expert. So here's where I think it would be great. We'll do like another 2 minutes. I know we're going a little overboard. To look at this literacy within the disciplines chart that's kind of broken down by, right, each category or each, I guess I'll say discipline. Kind of bring that back. So maybe that will help you too to discuss the mean and the matter. See, like this thing, I felt like my most favorite part of the whole session. Yes, because why don't we just get this everybody? Yes, just say this to me. Because these are just so general. What I thought too, like even if you're, you know, where you work or what you do, right, does not fit in any of these categories, you could make your own.
Like and just pick the ones that you think are more applicable.
Yeah. Just talking about different older practitioners, right?
Yeah. Contributing them to society, whatever professors talk about. Yeah. That's the best, yeah. It triggers that, yeah.
This like show passive voice, and then like
I like how none of them like
students are
right, like yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like how you can still like apply it to different paths. Right.
It's skills, you know.
It's skills, but it's like, you know, like it's a way of thinking about how to make skills. It's a thing that I need to work on. To have success in this area.
Life, you know, and you know, we talk to the kids all the time, like, hey, you know, like, you know, you understand that we're trying to teach you more than just content. We're trying to teach you skills, and that those skills, whether or not you ever have
supposed to be, yeah,
right,
translate this stuff.
And then I say it's not just, you know, Henry VIII, you know what I mean? You probably will never have another question about Henry VIII in your life. But in general, you're able to kind of, you know, figure out some of these higher order thinking skills, and even the lower order skills, like what, just even being on time, like those things, like that, like, you know, soft skills that you're going to need in the job market, whether you're going to go to college or the workforce or the military or whatever. You're going to have to be on time wherever you go. It's not totally.
It's not only for school.
Yeah, that's a good way. Okay, I know we're brushing up against lunch. Want to keep anybody from lunch? I know we're a little bit over. Okay, so last one. Any groups that haven't shared yet about what this means or address, again, if you looked at that chart a little bit in detail.
That was kind of makes sense to us. Go ahead. I already spoke, so that's okay. Go ahead.
What we talked about was, what we really liked is the think part, you know, transferring all these skills, reading, writing, speaking, to whatever discipline we're teaching, but we talked about how important it is for the students to understand that they should be thinking about what they're reading, writing, and speaking about, so they're just not regurgitating or putting stuff down, but they're actually processing what we're talking about. I thought that was a real good part.
Right. Thank you. What about the matter? Why does it matter?
I think that we have to initially, you know, to get them to think is provide them, like I know we talk about podcasts, so that's right. Providing them with sentence stems of how to speak like a historian, speak like a scientist, so that they have that initial information and we could equip them with that knowledge so that they can then write like a historian, etc. Right. So it has to be very explicit. Initially teach them how and then expand.
I'm just thinking like how hard this actually is. I'm just noticing like all the layers of skills, being in some history classes and seeing the content, like that's a whole thing. And then how do you understand all that, think about it, and then be able to speak, write, you know, speak and write, I guess, about it. It's a lot. It's very deep.
Yeah.
Right. It's a lot of content.
Yeah.
I would say one last thing too, having all these skills on knowing how to write, speak in different formats, it just helps in general communication, like understanding your audience, knowing the type of person you're speaking to, how to talk to them, and then having all this previous experience can just, I feel like, make you such a better communicator with like a variety of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and translating the skills, right, to, right, college or career, which, ready for me to tie this in a nice bow, helps with economic mobility, right? Mhm. So, you know, I mean, that's really what we're after, right, to make our students able people, right, to support themselves and the ones they love once they graduate, so. I agree, 100%. So thank you guys all for coming. There are some Schoology resources available in the WHS Professional Learning course. So if you're not in that, we could get you in that, but the AVID strategies are in the orange one. There's some annotation strategies again across the curriculum in there and other things like that. And then this was just one other quote, you know, that you kind of read on your way out the door about from these literacy advocates that are, you know, looking to grow that